So, John.
And Ronnie.
On with another video. So, today we wanted to come on and do a part 3, because I think last time we did interracial couples, how we handle things, and expand on the N word. And this is part 3 because this is the third in a series, but we always get a whole bunch of questions about us as a couple. People are interested, so we want to continue to answer your questions and give you guys a little bit more insight into our relationship if you already don't know. If you already haven't gotten the insight and know what's going on. We just wanted to delve a little bit deeper, and I think today what we wanted to do was expand on the N word as it relates to our families and how we grew up. So, in relationship to maybe the first time we heard it, and did your family, each of our families, was that word bantered around a lot? So I'm going to let John start and handle that one.
I'm sure he throws me the hard balls. I never get no softball.
Pow, pow.
No. So my earliest remembrance of first hearing it, I'm trying to think. I think it was my grandmother. We were actually headed down the shore. We used to go down the shore on the weekends, and we would always pick up my grandmother. We lived in Northeast Philadelphia. She lived down in basically, I guess that's Southwest Philadelphia. She was in
US Avenue or Southwest. Anybody in Philly know of US Avenue?
Yeah.
That's where his grandmother.
That's right. 7414, but she don't live there no more.
I had a friend that lived on US Avenue. I just want to
Yeah, I don't know if the guy still lives down there that they sold her house to. He was a real ass. Almost got in fisticuffs with him there.
Fisticuffs?
Yeah.
Really?
I don't know if I ever told you that story or not.
You didn't?
That might be for a different video.
Okay. That'll be where family members are fighting or whatever, because Lord knows I got tons of stories about my dad fighting somebody.
Well, that wasn't a family member.
Well, I mean, just getting in fights in general.
Oh, yeah. We could do a fight video. That would be good. So anyway, we had picked her up, and I remember when we were headed down the shore, she had said, and the way it was, my mom and my dad were in the front, then me, my grandmother, and my sister were in the back. And I remember her telling a story about an interracial couple that were walking down the street. And she said, oh, that white woman, she says, she was with, and she used the N word in there. And I sat there thinking to myself, I'm like, hey, it's weird, because I told Ronnie, after all these years, I don't know why that sticks in my head so much, but when I heard it come out of her mouth, it just, to me, it didn't sound nice. I didn't like her saying it. Now, I never said anything to her because she's older and she was my grandmother, but I don't know, maybe that's why it kind of like stayed in my head for, all these years. But like I said, I didn't think it sounded very nice coming from your grandmother personally, but I know like your grandmother and people of all the same age and stuff, when she was my age, maybe she said stuff like that, but when you always picture your grandmother as somebody different than when they're like in their 20s or 30s. And I remember it just kind of stuck with me all these years. But like really, I was telling Ronnie tonight before we decided that we were going to do this video, it really just left a bad taste in my mouth. And with me being her grandson, and I was younger, I was probably maybe, I don't know, maybe like 8, 9, 10 in there. I wasn't going to say anything to her, because they would have told me, shut up and go to bed. Well, not actually in the car driving down the shore, but you kind of get the gist of that. But like I said, it really just left a bad taste in my mouth. That was probably the first time I heard that. And then I think I heard it from my mom once or twice. She would talk about people and she would use that word. But even from your mom, to me, it just didn't seem like they should be saying it, and to me, like I said, I really thought it just put them in a bad light. And like I said, I love my grandmother. We always had a real good relationship. So like I said, I would never do anything to hurt my grandmother, but I just, like, the thing that I could say, it just really left a bad taste in my mouth.
And even as a kid, growing up, you realize that the weight of that word, and that it really shouldn't be bantered about, like, just saying it in general is really shouldn't be said. So you said he has an Uncle Buddy, and
Oh yeah, Uncle Buddy's story.
yeah, now and I don't know, we may have mentioned this before. I might have mentioned it in the original video, but his Aunt Carol and Uncle Buddy, I wish that they were John's parents, because I find them to be very cool, and I find his Aunt Carol, which is his mother's sister, to be very genuine. You know how you can meet somebody and be around them, and you just feel that how they're reacting to you is very genuine. His mother, again, I just feel like she's very phony, but her sister is just very down to earth and genuine. And I told John, I said, Uncle Buddy and Aunt Carol should be your parents. Don't get me wrong. I love his dad, because I think.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not trading my dad for Uncle.
No,
Buddy.
No. I'm not saying that, because
Uncle Buddy's a little bit on the cheap side. He is, babe. I can't help that.
I was just his dad is fine, but I was just thinking, as parents, I just think they're a cool couple. Yeah. But
you could trade my mom for my Aunt Carol.
Okay.
But I'm not trading my dad for Uncle Buddy. I can tell you some Uncle Buddy stories.
That's different.
He's a little bit of a type.
But
he is. Hopefully he doesn't watch this video.
Hot calling the kettle.
Babe, I just whatever Ronnie wants. I said, just get it, Ronnie. It's not raining out there.
I need to move.
Ain't no lightning coming.
Lightning is about to strike this house real quick. Then John. So
come a little closer.
But
we got a little lightning rod there.
So what John told me about it is Uncle Buddy, because like I said, I never felt any way about them, like I felt they disliked me or whatever because of my color. But John said that there were times where, like when he was growing up, that not necessarily he said the N-word.
He didn't say the N-word. But
he made some references.
He made racial slurs. I think he would
like, porch monkey. Yeah, that's a racial slur.
Yeah, it's probably not the best thing he could say.
Oh, and jigaboo.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. But
I'm laughing,
again,
but I'm saying.
But this is why I told Ronnie, and I never believed in karma at all. And Ronnie was like, "Oh, karma is just, it is true." And the more she said it, and I would sit back and think about it, and to me, I'll be honest with you, it took a lot of stress off me, because my whole thing is when I had an issue with somebody, I would like take it home. If it was in work or something, I'd be all like uptight about it. Want to go choke somebody, not physically, but you know what I mean. But just I couldn't let it go. I would like dwell on things. And Ronnie said to me one time, because me and my ex-wife, even when we got divorced and I was with Ronnie, she would still do things where I was paying child support and stuff just to drive you insane, and just constantly raising my blood pressure at every chance she got. And Ronnie said to me one day, she said, "Why do you let her get you so upset?" And I said, "Well, I can't let it go." She's like, "Well, you got to learn to let it go." She said, "Think of it like this. What you do to people in this life is going to come back on you." And I swear to God, ever since she said that, I see so many instances where somebody does something and something comes back. It might not come back that day, it might not come back that week, but it always comes down on somebody.
I tell them you got to be patient, because definitely what goes around comes around. Again, it's not going to be. Sometimes it is instant karma, but most of the time you have to wait around for it. And in this case with Uncle Buddy, he's got some black grandkids. And that totally probably changed the way he felt about, calling people jigaboos or porch monkeys, because now he's got grandkids, and he's got a crazy amount between his grandchildren, and then he's got great grandchildren. He's got like 38 grandchildren and great grandchildren. And I was telling Ronnie the night before we did this video again, I was telling her, I said, now see, he's taken his multiracial grandchildren out to zoos. He's taking them out to dinner with him. He's got so many grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
If he wanted to, he could just take really the white ones. But I told Ronnie, I said, even though he said that stuff, and it definitely wasn't right, I don't take Uncle Buddy as somebody, that's going to like burn a cross in front of your house. I really think Uncle Buddy is a good person. A little bit of a tightwad, but he is a good person. He is a good person. And like I said, I'm not going to, I wouldn't hold that against him because of something he said. Because like I said, he's basically, what I always say, walk the walk, talk the talk, walk the walk. To me, he's walking the walk. So, like I said, I couldn't really come down hard on Uncle Buddy.
And he doesn't have a problem taking these kids out. Now, John's mom, on the other hand, and I think I might have mentioned,
she ain't taking their kids out.
She not taking the kids out. She already said she only had one grandkid if John and I was to ever have a kid. But when I remember this distinctly, we were down in Wildwood, we was walking the boardwalk, and we had Sean with us, and it was like, I think we was down there for a weekend, and he was like, "Oh, let's go walk the boards." The evening, it was nice, summertime. So we're walking on the boardwalk. John and I walking hand in hand. I guess that was the problem. And Sean somewhere in the middle. And his dad I think he was pretty much keeping up. His mom was way in the back. So in other words, she didn't want to be seen with us, and she made it very obvious to the point where I was like, why don't we just leave or just let them do their thing and we'll just walk the boards? Because I like going down the shore in the summertime and walking the boardwalk, getting ice cream or getting French fries or just water ice or whatever. It's nice. The evening is nice. You can walk on the beach if you want to. I enjoy that. And she was ruining the whole thing because she didn't want to be seen with us because she was wondering, I guess, how people would perceive, her. Why? I don't. Yeah. These people don't know you.
And that's not just your perception, like you feel in that. Because I remember one conversation, and I don't know whether it was before that incident or after that, but she had asked me, she said, "Do you ever feel funny?" And I said, "About what?" And she's like, "Well, do you ever feel funny, like people when you and Ronnie are out, like they're staring at you or watching you?" And I specifically remember having that conversation with her. And then Ronnie brought up the thing about how she noticed that she was so far either ahead of us or behind us when we were walking up the boardwalk. And that's basically why. Because she had come out and asked me that. She said, "Oh, I would always feel like people were staring at you." So she already had that fixated in her head before she ever got to that boardwalk. Because like I said, whether that was before or after, that was already in her head that night when we were walking that boardwalk.
Yeah, because she was acting like she didn't know us. And I thought, this is so crazy. Because in the grand scheme of things, these are people on the boardwalk enjoying themselves. Even if they are looking, what do you care? You don't know these people. They don't know you. They don't pay your bills. You don't have to see them again. So why are you concerned about other people looking at you and what they may be thinking? I don't care what they're thinking. But this is your son and your grandson. You're out trying to have a nice time, and you're trying to ignore them or ignore the situation because you're afraid of what somebody's going to think about you, and you don't even know this person. I say people put too much emphasis on the wrong things, and to me, I was just like, okay, this further, solidifies why I really don't want to have anything to do with his mother, and he already knows that. So that was that. But the flip side of that is, now in my family, as far as the N-word goes, nobody said it. The N-word in my family was a bad word. It was like a curse word, so you just didn't say it. I don't ever remember my uncle saying it because I grew up with I think I may have said this before. I grew up with my uncle who was it was like 4 generations in my house. So it was my great grandmother, it was my grandmother, it was my mom, it was me. So that's 4 generations. It was also my uncle who was my grandmother's brother. And then when my Aunt Pearl came back with her brood and everything, it was just like a whole bunch of people in the big house. But growing up in that house, I never heard my uncle use the word. I never heard my great-grandmother use the word. I never heard my mom use the word. I'm not so sure about my grandmother because my grandmother cursed you out in a minute. And she was the type of person to be talking about you under her breath with you sitting right next to her. I mean, my grandmother loved to fight. She loved to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. So more than likely, she would probably be right next to you, cursing you out and you didn't even know it. But I don't know if I've ever heard her use the N-word. So like I said, that was a curse word in my house. Now, I was telling John this story earlier, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the N-word, but it goes further to explain how something can be so ingrained in you that you're afraid of saying it. If it's a curse word, if it's something bad or whatever, you just don't say it. Now, I can remember an incident where I was doing something for school, and I had, if anybody remember, like those old easels that had a blackboard on it and it was green. And I remember, like, I might have got it for Christmas one year, you can take the chalk and write on it or whatever. And I remember my dad visiting, and he was helping me with my homework. And I don't know if it was a project or whatever, but in it, I had to use the word damn or something in a sentence or something along those lines. And I remember saying to my dad, I can't say that word. And he was like, why? I said, because it's a bad word. And he was trying to explain it to me. And I think I was young. I might have been like 5 or 6. And it got to the point where I was so upset because I knew that was a curse word. And I was upset and I was crying. And he was trying to explain it to me. And one of, like you have these endearing moments, with your parents where you remember things, because I didn't live with my dad. They divorced when I was really young. And there are like few things in my life that I can remember experiencing with my dad that just lasts a lifetime and automatically takes me back to that time. But what he did was, because I was so upset and I was crying, and everybody's like, what's going on? And he's like, I'm trying to explain to her, but she don't want to say the word. And he took the chalk and he went over to the board and he drew a picture of a dam. And he showed that to me and said, that's what this word means, D-A-M. This is what it does, the water. And he explained the whole thing to me through a picture. And then he said, that's not the curse word. They sound the same, but they mean something totally different. And I will always remember that situation because, like I said, I grew up in a household, you don't curse. And I knew the damn meant that was a curse word. And he drew a picture of it to explain to me what it actually meant to, to the kids, eyes. It's like, oh, okay, now I understand. So yeah, those type of things were curse words in my family. So nobody ever used it. Now, of course, you have the rogue family member. It's always an odd uncle or aunt or friend that comes over and they just let loose. Now, in my family, that was my Uncle James. Now, that was my great-grandmother's, my great-grandmother's sister's kid. So that was her nephew. Now, there was 2 of them. There was James and there was Sam. Sam was really, he was easygoing or whatever. But James, I'm thinking he was a wild child because he was a drinker. I had never seen Uncle James come to the house without a beer in his hand. Out the car, step out the car, beer in his hand, and just talk about any and everything.
He wasn't driving with that beer in his hand, was he?
Back in the day where people didn't care you drove drunk, yes, he was driving with a beer in his hand. Coming to the house with it in his hand, drunk already. And nobody ever thought, maybe James shouldn't be driving around drunk.
Maybe you drive into somebody killed somebody.
Yep. What do you always say? Hey, it was the times.
So wait a minute. Before you go too much further, I want to ask you one question. So when you were a little kid, after the story with your dad and him drawing a picture of the dam, every time you got mad, did you be like, God darn it, I'm going to go build a dam? Because your mom always said that you were building these little stick things in the backyard. Was that every time you got mad?
No.
Oh, okay, never mind. Okay.
I don't even know where you're going with that story.
Because you're building a dam. You wanted to curse, but instead of cursing, you went out and built a dam.
Yeah, that's not true.
Come on, man, that's funny.
It's not funny.
It is funny.
It's not. So anyway.
All these little piles of sticks all over the yard. Go ahead, continue.
So James would come and, every curse word under the sun, he would come. I can see him now. He come in the house, Ruth Ella! Because that was my great-grandma's name. Her name was Ruth. Her middle name was Ella. He was the only one who got to call her Ruth Ella. So he come in and, he sit down and just curse up a storm and whatever, and come in real quick and then leave. And that was it. Like a whirlwind in the house, twirling around, and he's out like a tornado. But I can remember him always cursing. When you're a kid, you be sitting around waiting, and you hear, oh my God, that's how he's talking or whatever. And then, of course, like I said, my great grandmother would get mad. And she'd go up. Not my grandmother. Not my great grandmother. She'd go up in her room, slam the door, and curse everybody out in the house for whatever reason. I don't know. That's just what she did. So it wasn't like I wasn't exposed to it. I just knew that I wasn't supposed to say it. And then my mother had a god sister who would come every once in a while, and she had a bit of a potty mouth too. And I can remember my grandmother saying, "Oh, I can't believe this heifer coming in here again, cursing up a storm and doing it." And I looked at my grandmother like, "Are you serious? You have the biggest potty mouth too." So yeah, I mean, there were situations where people would come in your house and do whatever. And I always say that my encore ran a speakeasy because, in essence, that's what it was. It's always one person in the family or one house you go to every weekend where everybody's partying, and that was my encore's house. So yeah, so again, and then those weren't places for kids, but hey, you just end up being there and you hear and see stuff. So that's just the way it kind of way it was. But yeah.
Weren't a big cursor when you were little, were you?
No, but unfortunately now I have quite the potty mouth, and I do try to curb it every now and then. But yeah.
And you would think living with me that you wouldn't lose that potty mouth.
John, every other word out of his mouth sometimes is the F word. So you can't even talk.
First of all, I work with my son.
Every other word out of his mouth is an F word.
Anybody ever worked with their kids, you are going to have a lot more stress sometimes than working with just an average person. So if we did a video on the landscaping thing with me and my son, Ronnie would have to do like every third or sixth word would have to beep and blank that out. Yeah, probably wouldn't be a good video for what
that probably wouldn't. So, all right. So we were talking about like interracial things, and I don't know if like anybody's aware, but my sister is interracial, and so is my brother. And I was telling John that it's weird because my brother's was adopted, and I'm not exactly sure. Nobody ever spoke of what his ethnicity was. But again, my sister's mother was white. So growing up, I think that my sister had it. I think she had it a little difficult because she grew up in Vermont, and when I can remember going up to Vermont, there really wasn't that many black people up there. So when I say that, people think, oh, well, did it have to be? But sometimes there's certain things that black people need that they just didn't have access to. Now, my sister had this really, really curly, like tight curly hair when she was little, and then when she got older, it got longer, but she still didn't know what to do with her hair. Her mother didn't know what to do with her hair, and I think sometimes that's a situation when you're in an interracial relationship and your child is having problem finding products for their hair and stuff like that. I remember she said she used to have to go to Canada and maybe get like stuff for her hair if she wanted to like get a perm or whatever, like a straightener for her hair. She had to go to Canada, and apparently the place in Canada stopped making them. So I can remember one time going and getting some stuff and shipping it up to her. But you don't think about things like that. Like that was a hardship because she didn't know what to do with her hair, and nobody knew how to fix her hair. So those are things that you don't ordinarily think about. And I know for a fact that my brother, I can remember him having issues, I think, with his stepfather. So when his mom remarried, I guess just going by what my dad told me, she married a racist, and he tortured my brother from what my dad told me, and my dad was always over there championing him and making sure nothing happened to him. So unfortunately, I think when my dad died, that was the end. And I have no idea what this guy did to my brother after that, but I do realize that he had some issues he had to deal with, in life, probably because of that, so yeah, it's just, people say, oh, well, what it doesn't always have to be that way, but sometimes there are issues like that necessarily come up. And the weird thing about, like, my sister, and I don't know if she knows this, and we probably really never talked about this, but when my mom and my dad got together, I don't think that his family really liked my mom. For whatever reason, I just don't think that they did. I know when they wanted to get married, my mom told me that his side of the family didn't want to contribute anything to the marriage, and because I think they had like a sit down where it was my side of the family and his side of the family, and they said we don't have any money to contribute. They didn't want to put anything into getting married, because my great grandmother and my grandmother and my uncle was like, well, these kids want to get married, we got to help them out. They was like, nope, no. That's how his family felt. Now, when they got married or whatever, like, I think my mom moved back home when I was 2, so they broke up around that time. And at that time, my dad moved out. I think he moved to New Hampshire, then moved to Vermont. But at that time, he was exclusively dating white women. So even when he was still married to my mom, he was fooling around on my mom with white women. They would go and pick up my grandmother and take her shopping, and she knew this, and she's like, at the time, my mom was home with like a 1 or 2 year old. Why are you upholding your son and doing it? I don't care what color the person was, just tell your son you got a wife and a baby at home, but that was my dad. So he did these type of things. So when my sister comes along, I didn't even know, because like I said, my dad was up in Vermont. I didn't even know that my grandparents were sending her things. She got like birthday presents and all this kind of stuff they were sending up there. They never sent me any birthday presents. I never got anything from them, but when she came along, they treated her like, oh, this is the granddaughter that we never had, but I was right there all along, so I'm not sure. I don't think I had this conversation. I might have had this conversation with my sister after my dad died, because she was having a hard time dealing with my dad passing away. But I told her, I said, you were the golden child. I was the one that, they didn't really care about, and it really showed. But I didn't let that make me, a hostile person or not recognize them as my grandparents or whatever. I just was like, I don't really want to be around you.
So I have an interesting question that I was thinking of when you were telling that story. So if your sister was from an interracial marriage, and you being a black woman, excuse me, do you feel that there's any difference? Like, do you feel like most of your life growing up was harder being a black woman, or do you think her life would have been a little bit harder being interracial? Is there like a difference?
That's a very good question, and I feel that's something that she would need to answer from her perspective. But I don't know if I think her life was any harder than mine, just because of her mixed race, being mixed racially. I don't really think that the two actually even equate to each other, because as a black woman, I know the struggles that I have gone through, and like we said before in the other video, people are going to look at her and be like, well, she's mixed. I'm not exactly sure what she's mixed with, because I think these days and times people are really racially ambiguous. You could look at somebody and be like, well, maybe that person is Hispanic and black, or Hispanic can be black. Or maybe that person is Asian and black, but they really aren't. They're Hispanic. So you can't tell. I mean, again, it goes back to how you look, but people will look at her and know that, she's racially mixed or whatever. But I don't think that because of that, she necessarily had it any better or any worse. I really don't. I mean, she might be able to speak on that, about how she feels about that, or does she think that her life was any harder because of it? I don't know, but I definitely think that my father's I'm not even going to say my grandfather. I want to say my grandmother on my dad's side. Probably it was one of those things where it's the colorism thing, where she thought, oh, look at her, you know, she's light and her hair is curly and long. So yeah, this is what we wanted for our son, to have a baby, or you know, to be the father of someone that looks like her. Because in their mind, again, they're thinking the lighter you are, the better you are, going back to the whole slavery and the colorism thing. So, yeah, I don't think.
So you don't think there was a difference between the two?
I don't. She would have to speak on that. I really don't, because I don't, you know, again, as far as me going through life and the experiences that I've had being a black woman, having the type of career that I had, you know, I don't think, I can't see where she could say, oh, well, I had it rougher or whatever. I don't think so.
No. Good going.
Is that the only question?
That was my question of the night.
All right, so
I will just sit here and look cute for the rest of this video.
Yeah, I think the rest of the video is done. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it to kind of wrap it up. I'm sure we'll get more questions on that. We may be doing the video part 4. But I think that in the whole scheme of things, to kind of wrap this up, just stop labeling people, and you know, let's just, as Rodney King said, can we just all get along? You know, but yeah, we just wanted to delve a little bit deeper into that, because we have gotten some questions, and I think that we didn't really get into, you know, how John's family felt and used the N-word, and how I never really think I heard the N-word until I went maybe like in high school or something. I don't know. Like I said, nobody really said it. So yeah, there you go. Interesting. I think when we were talking about this, I'm like, really? You know, your family used it more than mine did. And you would think it would be the opposite, but yeah.
See, you get to find something new about somebody every day.
Something new about that? I thought John told me everything about his family. So
not everything.
Not everything.
I'm telling you where the bodies are buried. Oh, sorry about that.
Alright, folks, we're going to wrap this up. Again, we thank you so much for watching. Share, like, and subscribe. I hope that, right now it's looking backwards, but hopefully on the video you can actually read what it says. I think you can, because I think I made it that way.
So if you were standing on your head, would it look right side up or upside down?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe the share should be the other way around. I'm not sure. If it looks, if it looks floopy on there, just
share, like, and subscribe.
Blame him. All right, so okay, folks. So
God bless you all.
Peace and love.
You almost forgot that, didn't you? You hesitated for a second. Save that for the blooper video.
Joe is down here. Ow! Joe!
And he's laughing too. We took him out of the video.
We took him out of it. I told you to take him upstairs. He just bit me.
You should.
Joe, stop it!
You know why he's biting you? Because you didn't let him get in the video.
You have got to go.
She told him to stand on the end out of the camera, so he did, and now he's getting mad and he's taking a bite.
He's being bad. He bit me.
Yeah, he did bite you.
You gotta go. All right.
Took a chunk out of you. He's coming back down for more.
Joe. I'm trying to be nice. Peace and love. Bye. You better stop laughing.